So, seeing live music here on the Eastern Shore, you get a lot of cover bands. Pasadena is not a cover band, and one of our favorites that plays a number of spots around town. We saw them briefly over the Memorial Day weekend, and it was great because the relationship that we have with them at this point, Aaron, the bassist, comes up, and the first thing he says to me, it's not about nightlife, it's not about the band, it's not about music. He goes, "Hey, you're a Star Wars guy, right?" And we go into this long discussion about the new or the expanded universe of Star Wars novels not being canon anymore. And what's great is, while we're having this discussion, a super fan of Pasadena walks up and gives Aaron a whole earful of, "I love you guys, I love your music, you're going to make it big one day, and you know, it's social media, you guys do a great job," all of these things. Aaron was very gracious, said thank you. This guy turned and walked away, and he turns right back to me and goes, "So anyway, about Star Wars, it's time for the Todcast." You're listening to the Happy Hour Todcast, presented by GoodCleanFunLife.com. Find us on iTunes by searching GCFL and subscribe today.
Sick in the lane.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting conversation that we had with him.
Now, here's Todd and Tony.
I am Todd from GoodCleanFunLife.com.
And I am Tony Russo, no relation. And we got all sorts of stuff this week, tons and tons of fun stuff. But I wanna talk about canon for a second and see if we can get the internet to explode. I think that at some point we have to admit that canon is kind of made up anyway.
Right.
You know, to call something non-canonical. I mean, I was trying to explain this to my daughters the other day, and here's the thing that that I haven't heard anyone say out loud about Star Wars, but it really needs to be said, and I think it needs to be said by me at the very least. So here we go. In 1976, when Star Wars came out, I saw it in the theaters. I was 6 years old. It deranged me. Like, there is no way to talk about Star Wars outside of the Star Wars experience.
Right.
I don't think it's fair or right to talk about the other movies as if they are bad or good. The things that happen, like, there is Jason and the Argonauts, and then there is Star Wars.
Right.
You know what I mean? The things that they did in that movie, they're even the very best 3D is not so much better than all the other movies than Star Wars was than all the other movies when it came out. It changed what we expected from movies to its credit, but also a little bit to its detriment, because now everybody's like, "Wow, that sucks." Well, no, it doesn't necessarily suck. It's just that Star Wars changed the way that movies. It changed our expectations about movies in a way that we're never going to get back. It's like smoking your first joint or having sex for the first time. It's one of those things where you will never recapture anything close to the unexpectedness of the experience. It's not just even the quality of the experience, and the quality of the experience was fantastic, but it's the newness that can never, ever, ever be recaptured. Right. And I worry as people start to get really wound up about the coming Star Wars and about what they're doing in the shoot-off novels. I worry that people lose sight of that. Like, we can't understand Star Wars anymore.
Have you seen the documentary, The People versus George Lucas?
No, I queued it up several times though.
It's pretty interesting because, and the theory is, or what they talk about, and I know we've talked about it before, but you create this piece of artwork, and of course Lucas did it all on his own. He was, he called every shot, and he made some terrible judgments. We'll all agree, but it was all his. And then the first three movies come out, and then the next three movies come out that are the prequels, and people are up in arms about it because you create an art form and you put it out there, and then it becomes the public's, and it's no longer yours anymore. Right. And it was great to have this conversation in the context of talking with Aaron, who, like, I have this whole thing about how everybody's a nerd. They're just nerds about different things. I always bring it up around Bike Week too, because bikers are nerds about their two-wheeled, machines. But so having Aaron, who was being revered by this guy who was really intoxicated, which added to the funniness of it. But the guy was just like so into what he was doing and like so happy just to be talking to him. And Aaron was very appreciative and that sort of thing. But that's just not that's not the conversation that he wanted that he was in. He was in his mind, it was somewhere completely different. But I think the parallel there was just fantastic. Everybody's weird. Everybody's a nerd.
Right, and to tag up a little bit between that and the George Lucas thing, can you imagine being George Lucas and being so, like, all right, so suppose Aaron turned around and said, okay, I don't want to talk about my music anymore, and I'm going to give you $4 billion to leave me alone about my music.
Yeah. Right.
Can you imagine getting to that point where you're like, yeah, you know what, here's $4 billion, please leave me alone. I'm sorry about Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
I've never made a $4 billion. I've never made a mistake so grievous I felt like I owed the world $4 billion.
Right.
That's a lot of money to pay the world because they won't leave you alone about how much they didn't like something you did one time.
It is crazy.
Sterling is getting $2 billion.
Yeah, right.
George Lucas had to give away $4 just so people could hate him, and also he wouldn't be expected to do anything about it anymore.
Right.
I keep spinning on my screen. I'm sorry. I don't know who can see that but me. But.
You're sitting a little closer.
So we have officially begun this summer, and you guys got out to the Starboard for Memorial Day?
Yeah, we went up for Memorial Day. Of course, we're going to be doing the coverage all summer long up there, mostly on different acts and that sort of thing. Said it 100 times. Love the place. The staff up there is great. If you have a chance, you gotta jump over and you gotta watch, subscribe and watch on the Starboard YouTube channel. We basically created the epic movie trailer. Talk about movies for Memorial Day weekend. It is the amount of people that descend on Dewey Beach and then specifically the Starboard is just incredible. And it's not a huge place. It's kind of it's almost ramshackle. It's like, there was a main building and then they built another building and there was a deck in between and they have a roof. Did you see that?
I did. Well, I'm going to take the opportunity to interrupt you because it sounds a little bit like Mackey's. I guess it looks a little bit like Mackey's, huh?
Yeah. And there's definitely something. There's similarities there too. I think with the staff and the commitment of people who go there specifically to have a great time. But at Memorial Day weekend, their Suicide Sunday, which is their Bloody Mary brunch. There was a line around the corner at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
So this is to get into a bar and to have some champagne and and have some Bloody Marys, and it was astounding. So we put together a nice little video. It's a little bit more creative than we normally do. It's worth checking out. We have O Fortuna as the soundtrack, and and some epic, almost pyrotechnics, and some great shots of the staff just in the midst of what they were doing.
I'm sorry, you were queuing something up earlier. Is that queued up? Do you want to show that now, or?
It's not queued up, but we can move right along.
Yeah, no, you were looking for something when we first started, so I didn't know what you were looking for. And the other thing we were going to talk about is, first of all, like, it doesn't really matter. This isn't any kind of like secret or anything, but I finally got someone to call me back and say, hey, I wouldn't mind looking at your book and seeing if I hate it as much as I think I'm going to. Generally, people have been sending me emails along the lines of, I can't believe you wasted my time reading this email. But a publisher reached out, and I may have, I will at least have the opportunity to get more of the work in front of someone. They read a little bit, they liked it, and they want to see more, which is very exciting. And you were mentioning earlier that you also are literary now.
Well, and that's the whole thing. So the conversation with Aaron from Pasadena was, I had just finished up a Star Wars trilogy series, and this guy, he's read them all, and he reads a lot. And I was thinking to myself that, all right, I have that empty feeling, and now I need a new book to read. And well, duh, I'm going to read the almost autobiographical experience of the creation of Burley Oak by one Tony Russo. You sent me the first chapter a little while back, and I was looking for it on the beach today. I didn't really have the the attention span at that moment. But yeah, no, I'm excited for your book to come out.
I'm excited too. But what was the book that you finished? What was the name of it?
It was the Darth Bane trilogy.
Ah,
and
now, does that have anything to do with Batman?
No, nothing to do with Batman. But
that would be awesome.
there's some you Google it, and there's some definitely crossover art online that you can find.
I would imagine as much.
It was a great story. It's a trilogy, 3 books, and what's great is actually who turned me on to it is a friend's daughter. She's one of these hip girls, and she's like 24. She's around town. She works down at the Shark, and again, nerd in disguise, and I just I love that. So she was the first person who recommended it, but I know that your book is going to read much like the.
Yeah, it's not going to be quite the Star Warsy kind of stuff, and I don't want to poo-poo it because for a million reasons, and primarily because those guys deserve respect for what they do. But I'm going to tag up on it a little bit and talk about Kurt Vonnegut, which he's better than I am. And one of the things that he did...
Arguably better than you are.
Arguably better than I. But one of the things that he used to do was he used to do these science fiction stories back when... It's fascinating, and I'm going to bore you with it now. But they still pay writers by the word, but they used to pay science fiction writers by the word. And the advent of the electric typewriter doubled people's salaries.
Wow, that's great.
The fact that they could just crank out that many more words per minute, words per day, words per chapter, words per book. But he used to do stuff like that, which would be the serialized kind of things, and the pulpy, and again, not derisively, but the pulpy science fiction kind of stuff. So early Kurt Vonnegut, you would probably like very much. I would say start with Cat's Cradle, which it's in every library. You probably have it in your home. But Cat's Cradle is a nice, good starting point.
Right, and Kurt Vonnegut's is he Slaughterhouse 5 or?
He is Slaughterhouse 5.
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse 5, and I'm not.
I own it. I've never.
I start crying in Slaughterhouse 5 before the introduction is over. That's a beautiful, beautiful book.
That's good.
The Cat's Cradle is not quite as beautiful. It's not quite as emotionally challenging. Do you know the premise of Slaughterhouse 5?
I will if you remind me.
I would be happy to remind you of it. In World War II, the greatest loss of life from one bombing was not in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. It was in a town called Dresden, Germany, and the English were testing out a new kind of bomb, a firebomb, which would set things on fire when it fell, and that more people died in the Dresden firebombings than in Nagasaki and Hiroshima put together.
Wow.
By some weird coincidence. One of the greatest living American writers was a POW in Dresden when the firebombing started. And so that's his fictionalized account of what it was like to be in Dresden before, after, and during the firebombing. And it is a beautiful, beautiful book.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's I mean, and what are the odds? I mean, there's that, and there are Catch-22. Those are the definitive World War II books that I think get at World War II in a very non naive way, like the realities of how scared all the kids were and how gory all of the things were.
Let me ask you, while we're talking about storytelling, I had this this experience yesterday. Are you familiar with Fistful of Dollars?
Yes.
And are you also familiar with the Asian film that it was based off of?
I didn't know that. No, what was that called?
So, and I'm trying to be tricky and look it up at the same time. Our friends Kate and Ryan had us over, and we were just shooting the breeze. Nellie, through Tumblr and all of these other stuff, is very much into the anime stuff and the
Right.
Asian culture, and basically our buddies are as well. He brought up this movie, I think it's called like Jimbo or something like that, and it is the same storyline as Fistful of Dollars, but it's a samurai who comes to town, and it was made in well before the Yojimbo is the name of it. I've just found it on Wikipedia. Yojimbo, which is kind of funny because that sounds Western. But
Yeah.
what was amazing about it is like all of these Westerns were. Well, I mean, you can just see all of the parts and pieces that come up in the storytelling of Westerns, from this old movie, and even the little town that they're in. I'm like, I turned to my buddy Ryan. I'm like, why does this little Japanese town look like a town in the a Western town?
Right.
But it was pretty amazing, and from my perspective, the sort of film, wanting to be filmmaker perspective, this was back in the day when they were actually making movies with film, cutting, of course, on the actual tape and that sort of thing. Here, let me share it real quick. Here's the Wikipedia page.
Uh-huh. Well, do you know that just what was interesting about those spaghetti westerns is only the stars spoke English.
Is that right?
Yes. So like Clint Eastwood would say his lines in English, and all the rest of the actors were speaking in Spanish or in Italian, depending upon whether they were shooting in for the spaghetti westerns. They were mostly shot in Italy, but some of it was shot in Spain.
Yeah.
So can you imagine, like, if we were having this conversation and it was a scripted conversation, so I'm speaking to you in a language you don't understand, but you know what I'm saying because you've read the script already, and so I say, I finished my talking, and you're like, well, now I'm going to do some talking, and it's
but not actually communicating.
That. Yes. So I'm sorry. So that was wonderful. Fistful of Dollars. Is that the one with the two families, or is that the one with the watch?
Well, in the way I know it, it is the sake brewer and the silk maker families that
right. They're fighting against
that
one
are feuding. Yeah.
One against the other.
Yeah.
All right. And so now, if you get the chance and you have 2 hours that you never want back, you can watch Last Man Standing, starring Bruce Willis.
I've seen that. I think.
Same movie.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it's
that's a newer one too, right?
That's in the Depression era. It's set in the Depression. There's two bootlegging families, the Italians and the Irish, and that's almost a shot-for-shot same one as the Clint Eastwood one, and it's not quite as good. What I loved about that movie personally was I watched about half of it before I figured it out, and I'm like, I'm watching, I'm like, how do I know what's going to happen? I've never seen this movie, and then I'm like, I couldn't get it. Like, if you can imagine like imagine you didn't know that the Japanese movie you watched was A Fistful of Dollars, and
Right.
you're watching, you're like, hey, wait, I know how this. Why do I know how this goes? And then all of a sudden they did the exact same thing, and I'm like, I remember that
Yeah.
now.
Well, and you know what's funny is we were even discussing it is the guy who's the samurai who comes to town has this really he has this real ease attitude, but he has sort of a well, he has a squinty face, but
Uh-huh.
not because he's Asian,
Right, right, right.
but like just the look on his face is very Clint Eastwood, and it's you almost feel like if you're stealing it shot for shot, you might as well also kind of have that just like that furrowed brow, which makes the Clint Eastwood look what it is.
Right, right. Well, and I think that's a mix of confusion, like I'm confused, but I don't care, and like you can't read me because you don't know why anyone would make this face, and that's I think how he's able to not be trusted and be completely trusted at the same time by both families. So
Yes, yes, yes. Well, so
little face reading for you there.
a little face reading. Well, speaking of reading people's attire and that sort of thing, I don't know if you see this, but summer's here, so I have my bro tank on,
I see. It's very nice.
which is we got at the LLS, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society event that we did up at the Red Eye Dock Bar,
Right.
and one of the big sponsors up there was a bail bonds. So I have a bail bonds bro tank that I got from that. And what's great to segue to last week at Mackey's for the OC Tourist Party, the first kickoff theme party for the summer.
Right.
I wore the hat that I got from these guys, and it was just so perfect because this kid, as I'm walking through the crowd, was like, "Oh yeah, they sponsor my softball team." It's like, "Hey, that's my softball team."
Awesome. Did you get out to Easton? Am I misreading that? Is this the same thing?
No, so from that's actually coming up this week. This weekend we're gonna be up staying at the Tidewater Inn in Easton for the gala event. So this was a fundraiser that we did up at the Red Eye Dock Bar. We did a little video for that, and they saw the local chapter saw the video and was like, "We've been looking for somebody to do that for us. Would you like to come out and we'll put you up if you do the event?" And so yeah, we're getting in the program there with that. So a little bit of fundraising, donating our time to be able to cover that event, which is fun because, and I think I mentioned this, that two former friends of the show, both Eva Paxton and Charles Keenan, are
Right.
are people who are doing it. So.
No, that is very cool. I love. You've been to the Tidewater, right? You were saying you went to brunch there with your folks or something.
Yep.
Not too long ago. That's a beautiful place, and I'm still a huge fan of Easton. I don't miss Easton as much as I miss Berlin, but I always liked Easton. And I always thought it was I always thought it was a really neat place to go and to spend some time. So you may be able to do some side stuff while you're up there just to get out and.
Well, and what's great is they're putting us up at the Tidewater, so we've been there for brunch, but never to stay over. So yeah, we'll have the opportunity to do that and cruise around on Saturday morning or what have you. So
yeah, maybe have a little breakfast or even drinks after out on that lanai that they have there, and watch all the street traffic because it's right across the street from the Avalon. So something's going to be going on at the Avalon. So when you're not working, you can people watch out there or. Whatever, I don't know. I saw recently that Brian Russo, no relation, is headed to D.C. soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's on tour now or what.
We should actually we were just updating the calendar, so we'll probably have to update with the Avalon Theater calendar as well. And actually, Brian just had a CD release party over there at Fager's last.
Yes, I saw.
Thursday. So yeah, big things. Big things from all the folks around here.
And last but not least, before we get to the beginning of the end, let's talk about the summer honey program. Is that on? Congratulations to you if it is, because that's awesome.
It is on, and we went around and met some of the accounts. We're going to be going out, reinventing the promo company, sort of experience. So we're doing the.
I'm sorry, just for the kids who are new to the show, let's talk about what the summer honey program is and why you do it.
The summer honey Oh, I should share this. Here's a Todcast exclusive. On the how come it's not working? Well, I'm going to pull up the logo that we're working on. The program itself is going to be a promo. We're going out to places. We're taking pictures. We have a little step and repeat. People can Instagram. We're going to do a little hashtag campaign. Basically, I'm a hashtag OC Summer Honey, and we're going to be hitting up the outside places, a couple of the pool bars, the Fishtails, the new Cowboy Coast, and checking that out as well.
Cowboy Coast. Oh God, is that the party block?
Yeah, that's the new party block. It looks. We were in there because talking to the guys, and it looks awesome. I mean, it's a they got a nice little thing there. So
I had like a little. I'm sorry. I know they're sponsors, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't go, but I'm just saying, like, you said Cowboy Coast, and my spine kind of froze up a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly where. I could draw a picture of that if you'd like. If you'd like, I could write a long descriptive paragraph about Cowboy Coast.
well, you should do that with the promo for the Mackeys. Why everybody should dress up. So I don't know if are you seeing this on your screen?
Yes, it is. It is going beep 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 beep.
So we got crunch, crunch, crunch. We got right. the Good Clean Fun Life. I'm a OC Summer Honey. We're basically going to be taking pictures and.
The graphic didn't come up. It was just a picture of your illustrator.
Yeah, that was weird. Well, that will be out, but going around taking pictures, like I said, what we normally do, buying drinks, giving out some swag, and
this is Jack Daniels.
Yeah, so this is the Tennessee Honey that we're doing it.
Right.
And what's great is here's an opportunity at the end of summer. We're going to be giving away a prize. Whoever gets the most likes, that will be run through our website, a little photo contest. They'll get a media package from us that either an individual or the business can use. So I'm hoping that we can encourage these businesses that we're going to be doing stuff with to kind of push and promote. So you're putting Blue up against Fishtails, up against the Caribbean Pool Bar, and all of these places have great employees and great patrons who come, and so yeah, we definitely want to have the good clean fun spin on things, but it's going to be it's kind of a girly contest, but it's kind of the opposite of the gentleman's club that we did last year. So yeah, that's
enough. Yeah, everybody gets to enjoy their Jack Daniels. Girls can have it with honey, and men can have it with not honey. I vote for that.
That's why you're a man.
I'm a man. I'm a man's man because I don't put anything in my Jack, but occasionally some ice if it's really hot out. So we touched on the Mackey's theme parties, but you guys are doing something a little bit more with that this year than you have in years past.
Well, yeah, we're managing the part managing. We're emceeing the party, and then we're doing the whole taking care of the photos, and we'll be putting together not a video for every week, but certainly a video for for the roundup of the summer. But last week was the OC Tourist, and everybody came out. Decked in their Sensations gear, a lot of tight, lot of tight and bright stuff. Actually, one of my favorites was the Please do not feed the ponies. You got the horse mask and the ascetic
That's
folks
great.
that are coming in. But
Yeah,
it's a great. I mean, we've had the conversation. It is people go there for the for the purpose of having fun, and I think that's I think other places can learn from that and create an environment that is just pure enjoyment.
I don't know if anyone's noticed that the '80s neon is back, but it can go away at any time, and I would have no problem with that.
I agree.
I think that I never got the chance to buy a Frankie Says Relax T-shirt. That wasn't an accident. I don't feel like I need another bite at the Frankie Says Relax apple. So we'll see. But my kids are all showing up in these garish colors, and I'm like, this isn't one of those things where you're like, oh well, it was cool. No one ever thought those were cool. I mean, they were universally. I'm sorry, semi-universally. I mean, the colors were so bad that we had to endure 8 years of '90s grunge just to wash the fluorescent yellow out of our eye sockets.
Right. Well, and it's funny. I actually posted an article about the high-waisted jean shorts that the girls are wearing these days, and every generation has their ugly trend. It's the one thing that I don't know if it's that sort of punk mentality of something totally different, and it looks bad, but it somehow takes off as a trend. Well, these high-waisted jean shorts just look awful. And as being somebody who lived through the '90s with big flannel and baggy everything, this is not a place you want to go.
Yeah.
I like everybody. It's the female equivalent to having the super baggy shorts with the underwear hanging out for the dudes. That walking up and down the boardwalk. It's nobody wants that. Nobody.
No, and it's I don't think it's merely me being old, because there are lots of trends where I'm like, oh, I think that's stupid, but I'm old and I'm supposed to think that's stupid.
Right.
But I don't think that the neon is one of those. I think that that's a trend that. You know what? I frankly think that they didn't succeed in selling all of their neon pink Frankie Says Relax shirts in the 1980s. So they just found it in a case somewhere.
Right.
And now they're putting it back out.
Getting rid of old inventory is that
exactly?
That's
Simple
the name.
As that.
That's the name of the game.
Before we finish all the way, I wanted to see if you had any highlights, any calendar highlights you wanted to hit up on.
Well, this week we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be up in Easton for the event. There is, we're getting into the swing of things with the parties at Mackey's. This week is going to be the Gender Bender, so we're going to be doing that. Which should be interesting. And of course we have actually notable local band, the Hot Sauce Sandwich is going to be playing on the Tavern a week from today on the on Monday the 2nd. And before you know it,
when you say Monday the 2nd, you mean Monday the 9th, or are they playing tonight?
Oh, is today the 2nd? Oh no, yeah, we're already we're playing tonight. Yeah, Thursday, the Phantom Limbs at the Tavern, and then of course Friday we won't be here unfortunately, but there's the High Heel Race that's right here in Berlin downtown. So that's that's always kind of hilarious.
That's actually a new one. How old is that? 2 years, 3 years?
I think this is the second year. So is this the first annual, or is this the?
Yeah, if you say first and annual together, people generally don't think you know what you're talking about. So just say inaugural or annual.
But it's the second.
It's got to be the second one, so it can be the annual.
Okay.
That's just.
Just
annual.
leave the first out.
Why number things? Nobody really cares. No one's keeping track. That's my own personal advice from a person who's made that mistake too many times.
Why number things?
Right. Well, because if you say it's the 5th annual, they're like, well, it's not the first annual, it's the inaugural, so this is the 4th annual because they've had it 5 years, but only 4 years have they had it over. I'm not going to have that fight with you, moron. Just
Right.
It's the annual one.
Right. Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, I got nothing else. How about you?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, may Todd give you the sense to live in a small town.
We'll see you next week at Happy Hour. For more, go to goodcleanfunlife.com for podcasts, event calendars, articles, and more. Call or text us at 703-828-GCFL.